Tomorrow is the 28th anniversary of the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. It was a defining event for a whole generation of Americans. The images that will never go away. But what of the Kennedys from then to now? Bruce Morton reports on how the torch has been passed to a new generation of Kennedys.
That once there was a fleeting wisp of glory called Camelot.
There was, but it was almost 30 years ago, and half the people in the United States today know of the Kennedy administration only from history books. What's the name worth now? Congressman Joseph Kennedy, first elected in 1986, says it helped him get started, but...
Yeah, I think it's very helpful. I mean, there's you have tremendous advantages over other people, but the fact is that you also have to be able to perform, I think, on your own.
And Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, who works in a Maryland education project, says the name hurt in her one unsuccessful run for Congress.
A number of people said, you know, I would do much better if my name hadn't been Kennedy, because of the stereotypes that people have about them.
This generation of Kennedys has seen tragedy. Robert Kennedy's son David died of drugs. It has seen scandal, most recently at the family compound in Palm Beach. But it has seen successes. Joe, Kathleen, John Jr., an assistant district attorney in Manhattan, Patrick, a state representative in Rhode Island. And what about Senator Edward Kennedy, last of the brothers, scandal-plagued, aging liberal in the U.S. Senate? Can he survive?
I think the myth of Camelot has been overtaken by the randy reality of the male line of the Kennedy family. And I think that has caught up with him.
I think the question is whether or not voters will feel as if he's gotten a message. If they don't feel he's gotten a message, they may take it out of him at the polls.
Grocery store tabloids revel in the senator. Historians are reconsidering the private lives of John and Robert Kennedy. The torch really has passed to a new generation.
You know, you have to cut your own way in this life. That's what they taught us.
Sure, but look around his office. A little of the olden time still lives. Bruce Morton, CBS News, Washington.
Tomorrow in Eye on America, our nightly special report, we'll visit Dallas to report on the Kennedy assassination and the latest falsehoods and conspiracy theories, and Hollywood. Now, coming up in tonight's Eye on America, a small town after a big-time raid of the corporate variety.
I'm Paula Zahn. Career mothers versus stay-at-home mothers. Viewers speak out on this emotional issue tomorrow on CBS This Morning.
It's the 1980s. The leveraged buyout craze is in high gear. Corporate raiders using junk bonds to take over big companies. Now, fast forward to the 1990s. In tonight's Eye on America special report, Bob Faw takes you to a community along the Alabama-Georgia border where some say they are now paying the price for a decade of greed.
Listen to the voices echoing through the Chattahoochee Valley from a radio call-in show.
Well, what do you think about the situation since Farley come to town?
We have been devastated here.
Ever seen the people disturbed like they are now.
You're disturbed?
Everybody, not me. They're scared.
He's the greatest BSer of all time. He BS'd the bankers, and they believed every word of it, and let him have $4 billion.
This is who the fuss is all about, William Farley, a shrewd, swashbuckling corporate raider who made Fruit of the Loom a billion-dollar powerhouse.
And we're proud of it.
And who wanted to do the same thing here when he convinced financiers to help him go after textile giant West Point Pepperell.
He can set up there in Chicago and eat T-bone steak. I may be able to eat a hamburger once a week. He raped this valley. He raped this community.
Silver-tongued devil. And that he is.
After a bruising struggle which saw many townspeople rally against him, Farley used a leveraged buyout to seize control. Now, he admits he paid too much. The junk bond market he relied upon collapsed. The economy worsened.
What you're saying is, it's not my fault.
I'm saying the world changed in the middle of this deal. The world became very different.
The world changed, and so did the valley. Hundreds of jobs in these mills lost. Bankruptcies and foreclosures here soared. and the number of for sale signs sprouted up like crabgrass.
When you approach a deer in the road, how they're afraid, they're scared. You see it in their eyes, and that's what's taking place in our community.
Fired after Farley's takeover, Hollis Kelly has scrambled to find odd jobs just to get by. Others could not cope. Tommy Whitlock, burdened by personal problems, committed suicide after losing his job in one of Bill Farley's mills.
If Farley hadn't never taken over, I believe Tommy would have still had a job and still been living. I feel like he is a big cause of my son being dead today.
Mr. Farley took a perfectly viable, profitable company, overloaded it with debt, and that's why he can't do the things that was always done before.
Like recreation programs in the area. Before Farley, Pepperell footed all the bills. Now, parents like Drew Spradlin have to pay a fee.
What's happening here in the valley is ultimately a clash of cultures. On the one hand, a company that represented cradle-to-grave security, that repaired church roofs, bought Boy Scout uniforms, provided indoor plumbing, even toilet paper for its employees. And on the other, Bill Farley, who says that modern companies to compete successfully worldwide can't do that sort of thing.
I think that this area has been very reliant on, as I said earlier, a paternalistic attitude.
Too reliant.
Too reliant.
And some here who remember the area was in a tailspin before Farley think he is more sinned against than sinner.
He was a victim of circumstances because of the economic situation in the whole country.
For many people, though, Bill Farley is now a symbol, not just of an unwelcome outsider, but of unwelcome change.
I'm sympathetic to them, and I wish that it were different, but that's the way it is.
I'm glad I hadn't got to judge him. He's got to go up before the judgment bar of God one day, and he's going to see all the faces of all the people whose lives that he's ruined.
The Chattahoochee flows just like before, but never, say the people in this valley, will life here be the same. Bob Fall, CBS News, Lynette, Alabama.
His boat is so small, the sea so large. A 42-year-old Frenchman today became the first person ever to row from Asia to America. John Blackstone was on hand when the boat came gently down the stream.
This morning, the French adventurer met his final challenge, and he needed help. He accepted a tow crossing the turbulent waters where the Columbia River spills into the Pacific.
Yeah, he went through the bar. He's over the tough part now.
Yeah. Girard d'Abbeville had already put nearly 6,000 miles behind him as he neared the northwest corner of America.
This guy's got more guts than most, I'll tell you.
Alouette, gentille alouette. All of France knew for days he was coming here. Friends and family gathered to meet him. But many in the fishing village of Ilwaca, Washington, awoke this morning to discover greatness was about to be thrust upon them.
Directing him into Ilwaca.
This little fishing port isn't where d'Abbeville planned to end up. He had hoped to row in triumph under the Golden Gate Bridge. But when he couldn't make that, Ilwaca, Washington proudly accepted its place in maritime history.
I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it.
Teacher Ray Milner said it was a lesson for his fisheries class.
What do you think? Lesson from this is anybody can do anything if they want to. They want to bad enough.
d'Abbeville set off from Japan in July in his custom-designed rowboat made of polystyrene and carbon fiber. Both boat and adventurer withstood storms that tipped them over more than 30 times. But 80-year-old Henri d'Abbeville said he never doubted his son would make it.
You must be optimist in the life.
When d'Abbeville rounded the breakwater at noon today, all of Ilwaco cheered. His wife and children met him on the dock, and the cold and solitude of the North Pacific began to melt away. John Blackstone, CBS News, Ilwaco, Washington.
Vive la France. That's part of our world tonight. Coming up on this CBS station, a special 48 hours double feature. First, you'll be with the police as they're attacked by an enemy they can't even see. Then, a mother and father out for justice confront the man who murdered their daughter. 48 hours at a special time, one time only tonight, 9 o'clock in the east and west, 8 most places in between. Dan Rather, I'll see you then.
The Kennedy Assassination. Lee Harvey Oswald.